Hi friends, this is Joe, and this is episode 159 of the ttrpg podcast. Today I'm talking about my biggest problem with tunnels and trolls. I'm hoping that the smart people watching or listening will have a solution for me. So I guess the very first thing I should talk about then is, what is tunnels and trolls? If you didn't know, tunnels and trolls, also called TNT, was an early comer to the hobby. Depending on how you want to count things, it was the third or fourth RPG to be published. D&D was first, and then this kid in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Craig Van Grasteek, published something called The Rules of the Game of Dungeon, which ironically were the rules to D&D as he taught them. He didn't know D&D was a thing. He was playing with somebody that played in Arneson's group, and so then he put these together. But anyway, the Rules of the Game of Dungeon were second. After that, it depends whether you want to call Empire of the Petal Throne its own game, or if you want to say that it's just D&D with a different setting. And after Empire of the Petal Throne is Tunnels and Trolls. Because the earlier games have all either vanished or undergone such radical rules changes as to make them different games, I would say, in my opinion, that TNT is now the oldest RPG still on the market. One of the things I really like about TNT is the simultaneous combat system. Rather than each side taking turns swinging at each other, which never really made a lot of sense to me, both combatants try to outdo each other, with the winner injuring the loser. In my mind, it's so much simpler and realistic than the D&D system. While the simultaneous combat system originated with TNT, I personally didn't discover it until the 1990s when I saw it as an option in the Fudge rules. TNT goes a step beyond, however, and it combines the attack roll with the damage roll. This too makes sense to me. My attack roll represents the maximum amount of damage that I might be able to inflict this round. My opponent's roll represents the same for her. If her total is greater, I think it's still logical that she had to waste some of her damage potential dodging and parrying my attacks. Thus, I only suffer the difference between her roll and my roll. So if she rolled a 12 and I rolled a 10, I only take 2 points of damage. Makes sense to me. The other neat thing about the Tunnels and Trolls combat system is that if the party is fighting the same monster or group of monsters, you just add everything together. You know, all the party members roll and you add those up. All the monsters roll, you add that up. And that way it's like automatically built into the system that the stronger members of the party are protecting the weaker members. It's a beautiful system. It's simple. It's elegant. There's no need to look things up in a book in the middle of play, enabling the play just to flow around the table. The arithmetic can get a little bothersome at times, but it's not too bad. TNT also introduced armor that protects from damage rather than making you harder to hit. In the game that has no two-hit roll, that's kind of a necessity. I first encountered this as damage resistance, or DR, in GURPS, but TNT is where it started. And again, it's a good rule. It makes sense and it's elegant. So that was the first thing. But before I get into my problem, I should talk about encounter balance. Encounter balance is a relatively new term, but the concept goes all the way back to the very beginning of the hobby. In essence, encounter balance means that the monsters should be tailored to the abilities of the party. The idea that an encounter is so easy that the party can dispatch it without any threat of injury is boring, right? Likewise, an encounter being so powerful that the characters will automatically die, that isn't very fun either. So there has to be a middle ground, a point where the monster is tough enough to endanger the party, but not so tough that it can't be defeated. Ideally, in my mind, the monster should be a little tougher than the party until somebody in the party does something brilliant to turn the tables. That means that the players get tactical choices. It means that they are active participants in the experience rather than just sitting down to hear the GM tell a story. All right, so what's my problem? The problem that I have with the newer editions of TNT is that they make it impossible to make an encounter challenging but not overwhelming. And this is because of the way that armor works in these newer editions. And let me illustrate this with an example. Let's say that we have a human warrior. His name is Boar, and he's battling a mirror universe image of himself. We'll call him Rahab. Yes, that's Boar spelled backwards, right? So Boar and Rahab are identical to each other in every single way, except that Rahab, being from an evil alternate universe, sports a stylish goatee. So both of them have identical personal ads, which in TNT, that's your ability scores, the benefits they give you, your strength bonus and all that stuff. So those are going to be identical, and they're going to carry identical scimitars, because what's cooler than a barbarian warrior carrying a scimitar? But anyway, in Tunnels and Trolls, scimitars do 4 dice of damage. So they're equal on both sides. And they're both going to wear 10 points of armor, which, because they're warriors in the rules, that counts as 20 points of armor. The very best situation for Boar is that he rolls a 6 on all 4 of his dice, while Rahab rolls a 1 on each of his. In this case, Boar does 24 points of damage plus his personal adds, but because Rahab has the same personal adds, they'll get canceled out, and we don't care about those. So he's going to do 24 points of damage, while Rahab is going to deflect a pitiful 4. Bear has hit Rahab for 20 points of damage. That's the very best that he can do. But, like Bear, like I just said, Rahab's armor soaks 20 points of damage. So he just laughs the damage off, and the fight continues on for eternity, because neither one of them is capable of hurting the other. That illustration might seem a bit contrived, and it kind of is, because I made it up to prove the point. But let me provide a real life example. I had a real life game, where the party of 4 PCs had a combined 16D plus 23 combat roll, right? 16 dice, 16D6 plus 23 from their personal adds and stuff like that between them, all right? And between them, they wore 22 points of armor. That means on an average combat term, with 16D plus 23, they're going to roll 79 points of damage. So let's say I want to balance this encounter so that the monster sometimes wins the round and sometimes loses the round. That sounds exciting, right? Monster's going to win half the time, player's going to win half the time, unless the players do something to take advantage. Ooh, nail biter, right? So in TNT, monsters have something we call the monster rating, or an MR, and doing the math, I would want an MR 90 monster. That means that the monster will roll an average of 80 points of damage each round. In this case, the monster wins 52% of the combat turns, which is great. That's what I said, right? Monster wins 52%. Yeah, monster wins 52%. Players win 48%. Should be exciting. Should be a nail biter. But because I said, that armor that the players were wearing, the monster's going to fail to penetrate the armor 99.2% of the time. Clearly, this isn't a challenge, because the party will never be injured. Clearly, a stronger monster is needed. So let's say instead that I balance the encounter so that the monster has a 50-50 shot of penetrating the party's armor. Not of just winning, but of penetrating their armor. That means I need a monster with an MR of 119. Again, in Tunnels and Trolls, the higher the MR, the more powerful the monster. It's kind of like hit dice in Dungeons and Dragons. In this case, the players will lose the combat term 99.3% of the time. That's not going to be any fun for the players. So let me split the difference, right? Let me go with an MR of 104. This is going to be a little better. In this situation, the party is going to win about 10% of the time, while the monster's going to overcome their armor about 10% of the time. That sounds okay. That sounds balanced, right? But think about it. If the player's only damaging the monster 10% of the time, and the monster's only damaging the players 10% of the time, that means nothing's happening for 80% of the combat terms. We're both rolling dice, your armor soaked up all the damage. This is going to make combat tedious, and it's going to make it not fun. So what is the solution? I presented this to the TD&T community years ago, and some of them reached out to me and they said the answer was spite damage. Spite damage means that someone takes a point of damage every time the opponents roll a 6. Whether they won, whether they lost, whether they're wearing armor, it doesn't make a difference. If there's a 6 on the opponent's die, someone has to take a point of damage. The problem with this is that this is going to reduce the combat experience to how many 6s did you roll? How many did I roll? Round after round. So I don't think that spite damage is the answer. A thought I had was rolling back the damage division to pre-7th edition. So what that means is, like I said, when the party is fighting a group, that group is, it's treated as one. The party's treated as one. So if the party takes 14 points of damage, in the current rules, the party splits that up any way they want. So if the fighter is wearing 10 points of armor, he can clearly say, okay, I'll take 10 points. And maybe the rogue is wearing 4 points of armor. He'll say, I take the other 4, and the other party members don't worry about it. And they just sucked it up. So in the earlier editions of the rules, the damage had to be divided evenly across the party. So I thought maybe this is the answer. This would prevent the party from pooling that armor, but I think it will actually make the problem worse, because now the less armored PCs are going to have to start to wear more and more armor. Or if they don't, they're going to die, right? Because you're dividing the damage evenly, and these people are wearing armor soaking up this damage. The wizard isn't, bam, he's dead. By the way, wizards can wear armor in TNT. Anyway, so my current, but untested, I have not tried this out yet, is to roll back the armor rules to pre-5th edition. Back in those days, armor was ablative. So when we said that you had 10 points of armor, every time you got hurt, every time it sucked up that damage, it lost some of its armor value. To eventually, it was useless. And I can see why that rule changed, right? Because players get tired of having to buy new armor every adventure. But maybe it makes sense. Maybe it provides some nice role-playing opportunities for the players to repair armor between combats. Did you bring an armor repair kit? Do you have a talent as an armorer? I mean, that could get interesting. So I think that's the solution I would try. But do any TNT players out there know how to handle this situation? If so, leave a comment below or send email to feedback@decahedron.com, or you can call our voice feedback line. That's 562-774-2278. That's 562-RPG-CAST if you like phone numbers that spell stuff. There's also a website that you can send voice feedback from, and that's sayhi.chat/decahedron. All those ways are in the show notes, and they're on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. But that's all I have for this week. Thanks for watching and or listening, and until next time, happy gaming, happy life. Bye.